I used to believe that a heavy bank account was the only thing standing between my daughter and the chaos of the world. But as I watched Rita, the woman I trusted with my child's life, disappear into a warehouse that the city had officially marked as dead, I realized I hadn't been protecting my daughter. I had been building her a prison of gold. My name is Stephen Johnson, and following my nanny was the most expensive mistake I ever made, because it cost me my ignorance. Before we continue, please tell us where in the world you're watching from. We love seeing how far our stories travel, and it reminds us that hope and second chances are universal languages. I measure my life in numbers. Assets, liabilities, risk percentages. It's how I survived the 2008 crash while my colleagues lost everything. It's how I built a tech security firm that now protects half the Fortune 500 companies in America. And it's exactly how I evaluated Rita Tony when I hired her 3 years ago to care for my daughter, Lily. Rita had a 98% punctuality rate. She knew Lily preferred oat milk over almond milk. She had never once asked for a raise in 3 years, which I found both admirable and statistically unusual. But here's what haunts me now. I didn't know her middle name. I knew her credit score, her background check results, even the exact route she took from her apartment to my house. But I didn't know if she had siblings, or what made her laugh, or why she sometimes stared out the window with eyes that looked like they'd seen things my spreadsheets could never calculate. That Tuesday started like any other Tuesday. Except it didn't, because when I checked my bank alerts at 2:47 p.m., I saw a pending charge for $4,127.89 at a luxury athletic store downtown. The cardholder name? Rita Tony. She'd used a household expense card I'd given her for emergencies and groceries. My first thought wasn't concern. It was calculation. A nanny making $52,000 annually doesn't spend $4,000 on athletic gear unless something criminal is happening, because the numbers simply don't balance. I could have called her. I could have asked. But men like me don't ask. We investigate first, because questions reveal your hand before you know if you're holding aces or jokers. I waited until 6:15 p.m. when Rita finished reading Lily her bedtime story. I watched from my office security feed as she closed Lily's door with the gentleness of someone who genuinely cared. Then Rita walked to the car I'd assigned for her use, a sensible Honda Accord, nothing flashy, and she popped the trunk. That's when I saw them. 2 large black Adidas bags, the expensive kind with premium materials. She looked around the driveway like someone checking for witnesses, and then she placed both bags carefully in the trunk as if they contained something fragile or valuable, or stolen. Here's where I need to be honest with you. My late wife, Caroline, died in a car accident 4 years ago. The estate lawyers, paranoid about liability and inheritance disputes, had installed a GPS tracker in every vehicle registered to my name without telling me. I discovered it during an audit 6 months after the funeral, and I was furious about the invasion of privacy. But on that Tuesday night, as Rita's Honda pulled out of my driveway and headed east toward the parts of the city where people like me only go when we're lost, I activated that same tracker. Hypocrisy tastes bitter, but fear tastes worse, because I was suddenly terrified that the woman who knew where my daughter slept had just become a stranger carrying designer bags into the dark. The device showed Rita driving toward 5th Street, a district the city council had officially designated as economically unviable, which is political code for we've given up. Buildings that don't have businesses anymore. They have ghosts and squatters and the kind of stories that never make it to the suburban dinner table. I grabbed my keys, my phone, and my ignorance. I was about to follow Rita Tony into a world where my money meant nothing, and where everything I thought I knew about security was about to be dismantled by a woman in a red crop top carrying Adidas bags into the rain. Why would Rita risk everything to go to the most dangerous part of the city with $1,000 worth of merchandise? The drive from my suburb to the gray zone takes exactly 19 minutes in good traffic. That night in the rain, with my wipers struggling against the downpour, it took 23. 4 extra minutes to cross from one America into another. I've always been good at noticing patterns, and here's a pattern I noticed. The moment you cross Riverside Boulevard, the street lights change from bright white LEDs to flickering orange sodium vapor lamps that make everything look like an old crime scene photograph. The pavement changes too. Smooth asphalt gives way to pocked concrete that hasn't been repaired since the 1990s. Even the rain sounds different here because it's hitting metal and broken glass instead of manicured lawns. My GPS kept Rita's Honda exactly 400 yards ahead of me. Professional surveillance distance, not too close to be obvious, not too far to lose visual contact. I learned that from the security training I provide to corporate executives, and the irony wasn't lost on me that I was now using counter-espionage techniques to spy on my daughter's nanny. Rita wasn't driving like someone scared. She wasn't checking her mirrors obsessively or taking evasive turns. She drove with the confidence of someone who knew exactly where she was going and had been there many times before. That realization hit me like cold water. Whatever Rita was doing, this wasn't her first time. This was routine. She turned onto Fifth Street proper, and I had to slow down because there were suddenly people on the sidewalks. People who looked at my Mercedes the way wolves look at a lost sheep. A man in a torn jacket stepped off the curb and stared directly at my windshield. I couldn't see his eyes through the rain, but I could feel his assessment. Rich man, wrong neighborhood, potential mark. I kept driving, keeping Rita's taillights in view. 3 more turns, each one taking us deeper into the labyrinth of warehouses and boarded-up factories. Finally, Rita's Honda pulled into a parking area behind a massive brick building with no signs, no lights, and windows that had been painted black from inside. The kind of building that cities forget exists until someone gets hurt there, and it makes the local news for 30 seconds. Rita parked, grabbed both Adidas bags from her trunk, and walked toward a side entrance with a confidence that terrified me, because it meant she felt safe here, in a place where I felt like every shadow contained a threat. Rita Tony walked like she owned the rain-soaked concrete beneath her feet. I parked 2 rows away and killed my engine. My heart was hammering, because nothing in my risk assessment training had prepared me for this moment. I'd built my entire career on the premise that danger could be calculated, predicted, and avoided with the right data. But sitting in my car, watching Rita disappear into a building that looked like the setting of every crime documentary I'd ever watched, I realized I had no data. Just fear and something else. Curiosity. I got out of my car, and immediately the rain soaked through my wool coat, a $1,200 Burberry that Caroline had bought me for our last anniversary. The rain didn't care about the price tag. Neither did the man who suddenly appeared to my left, walking with a limp and carrying a garbage bag over his shoulder like some kind of urban nomad. "Wrong neighborhood, friend," he said, not unkindly. His voice had the gravel of someone who'd smoked for decades. "Whatever you're looking for, it ain't here." "I'm looking for someone," I said, surprising myself with the honesty. He studied me for a long moment, rain dripping from the brim of his baseball cap. "Then I hope she's worth it, because folks like you don't usually leave this place the same way they came in." He walked away, leaving me alone with my designer coat and my privilege and my certainty that I was about to discover that Rita was running drugs or stolen goods, or worse. I approached the side entrance Rita had used. It was a metal door with no handle on the outside, just a small window reinforced with wire mesh. Through it, I could see a dim red light and hear voices, multiple voices, including Rita's, though I couldn't make out words. I pulled on the door. Locked. But then I noticed something. A small camera above the door, the kind I sold to my clients for $3,000 apiece. Professional grade. Monitored, which meant someone inside had just watched me try the door. 30 seconds later, the door opened. Who opened the door, and what was waiting for Stephen on the other side? Listen, if you've made it this far in the story, you're invested. You want to know what happens next. But here's the thing. Most people scroll past these stories without subscribing. They watch, they enjoy, and they disappear. If this story matters to you, if you actually care how it ends, hit that subscribe button, please. It takes 2 seconds. And if you don't, you'll probably forget about this channel and never hear any other amazing stories from me. The man who opened the door was not what I expected. He was maybe 60, wearing a Vietnam veteran's cap and a flannel shirt that had been mended so many times it looked like patchwork. His face was weathered, but his eyes were sharp, the kind of sharp that comes from seeing too much and forgetting nothing. "You Stephen?" he asked, as if my arrival had been anticipated. The fact that he knew my name should have terrified me. Instead, it just confused me. "How do you?" Rita called ahead, said her boss might follow her and that we shouldn't hurt you because you're just scared and stupid, not dangerous. He stepped aside. "I'm Marcus. You got 60 seconds to see what you came to see, and then you leave. Deal?" I nodded and walked inside. The warehouse wasn't abandoned. It was alive. Dozens of people were moving between workstations. Folding tables covered with what looked like medical supplies, camping gear, cellular phones, and yes, athletic equipment. Young women were sorting items into backpacks. An elderly woman was testing burner phones. A teenager was using a label maker to mark packages with codes I didn't understand. And in the center of it all, holding a pair of expensive running shoes like they were sacred objects, was Rita. She saw me immediately. Her face went through 3 emotions in 2 seconds. Shock, anger, and then something that looked almost like pity. "Stephen," she said, walking toward me with slow, measured steps. "You shouldn't be here." "What is this?" I demanded, my voice louder than I intended. Several people stopped working and looked at me with expressions that ranged from suspicion to outright hostility. "Rita, what the hell are you involved in?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked at Marcus, who nodded once. "Permission granted. This is the Rebirth Network." Rita said quietly, "We help domestic violence survivors disappear. The shoes, the athletic gear, the bags, they're not for sale. We convert high-end goods into survival gear. Running shoes for women who need to run. Waterproof jackets that don't look expensive so they don't attract attention. Bags that are common enough to be invisible." I stared at her, my brain struggling to reconcile this information with my assumptions. "You're helping people?" It sounded stupid even as I said it, because obviously that's what I was seeing. But my mind kept searching for criminal angle, the hidden danger, the thing that justified my surveillance. "Every Tuesday," Rita said, "I use your household card to buy supplies. You never check the itemized receipts. Stephen, you only check the totals. Those Adidas bags? They're camouflage. Police don't stop pretty girls with designer shopping bags. They stop desperate-looking women with garbage bags." My world tilted. "But you could have told me. I would have." "Would you?" Rita's voice had an edge now. Would the man who runs background checks on his daughter's friends before approving playdates have approved of his nanny running an underground railroad for abuse victims? Would the man who installed security cameras in every room of his house have trusted me with this? The truth landed like a physical blow. She was right. I wouldn't have. I would have calculated the liability, the legal risk, the potential exposure. I would have fired her and reported her to someone, because that's what men like me do when things don't fit into our spreadsheets. I was about to respond when I saw them through the warehouse's main window. Two men approaching the side entrance Rita had used. One was tall, wearing a leather jacket. The other had a scar running down the left side of his face that was visible even in the rain. Marcus saw them too. "Rita," he said urgently, "your pickup is early." "That's not my pickup," Rita said, her voice suddenly tight with fear. "My pickup isn't until 9 p.m. That's—" The scarred man pulled open the door without knocking. "Scarred man. Well, the little bird is still in her cage." Rita, stepping back. "Victor, you're supposed to be in Pennsylvania," Rita said. "Victor," the scarred man got paroled early. Good behavior. Laughs without humor. "Surprised to see me, Rita? Or should I call you Rebecca? That's your real name, isn't it?" "Rebecca Tony, formerly Rebecca Morrison, formerly the wife who sent me to prison." My brain short-circuited. Rita was married to this man? "Stephen," stepping forward without thinking, "you need to leave. Now," Stephen said. Victor's eyes shifted to me, and in them I saw something that made my corporate security training feel like a children's game. This was a man who understood violence the way I understood profit margins, intimately and without hesitation. "Victor. And who's the suit? Your boyfriend? Your boss?" Looking at Rita. "You always did like men with money, didn't you?" "Rita, Stephen, don't." But I wasn't thinking. I was operating on instinct and fear and the primitive male urge to protect. I moved toward Victor, intending to, what? Push him? Hit him? I had no plan, just action. Victor's companion moved faster than I thought possible. His hand shot out and grabbed my collar, yanking me forward. I stumbled, my expensive shoes slipping on the wet concrete floor. "Marcus, Jake, let him go," Marcus said. "Jake, the tall man, stay out of this." "Old man," Jake retaliated. "Victor," walking toward Rita, ignoring me entirely. "You know what you did. Rebecca, you testified. You put me away for 7 years. 7 years of thinking about this moment." Rita, her voice steady despite her fear. "You put yourself away when you put me in the hospital 3 times. When you broke my ribs so badly I couldn't breathe. When you—" "Victor," spare me the victim speech. "I'm just here for what's mine." Stephen, still held by Jake, struggling. "Rita, get away from him." Rita, looking at me with an expression I couldn't read. "Stephen, you idiot. You just blew 3 months of cover." That's when I saw it. Other people entering through the main doors, not warehouse workers, but people in tactical gear moving with military precision. Federal agents? Police? I couldn't tell, but suddenly the warehouse was swarming with bodies and shouted commands. "Federal agent. Victor Morrison, you're in violation of your parole restrictions. Get on the ground. Now." Victor looked at Rita one last time, and the hatred in his eyes was so pure it was almost physical. "Victor, this isn't over." "Rita, yes it is." Jake released me, put his hands up in surrender as agents surrounded him. I stumbled backward, trying to process what had just happened. Marcus appeared at my side, his voice low. Your nanny is a federal witness. This warehouse is a safe house monitored by U.S. Marshals. And you just walked into the middle of an operation to catch her ex-husband violating his restraining order. I looked at Rita. Rebecca, whoever she was talking to one of the agents, pointing at Victor, her voice calm and professional. This wasn't a scared nanny. This was someone who'd been preparing for this confrontation, who'd been using my household funds not for theft, but for survival. Who was Rita really? And what else had Stephen completely misunderstood about the woman he'd trusted with his daughter? They didn't arrest me, which felt generous considering I'd just contaminated a federal operation. Instead, a U.S. Marshal who introduced herself as Deputy Chin escorted me to a small office in the warehouse corner while other agents processed Victor and Jake. Rita, I still couldn't think of her as Rebecca, sat across from me, her red crop top now covered by an FBI windbreaker someone had given her. She looked exhausted, like a soldier after a long battle. I'm going to explain this once, Rita said, her voice different now, harder, older, not because I owe you an explanation, but because you deserve to understand what you almost destroyed tonight. I nodded, unable to find words. 5 years ago, I was Rebecca Morrison, married to Victor Morrison, a man I thought was successful and confident. Turns out he was just controlling and violent. By the time I realized the difference, I had 2 broken ribs, a fractured jaw, and a restraining order that Victor violated every chance he got. She paused, staring at her hands. The court system failed me. The police couldn't protect me. So I went underground with help from a network that specializes in hiding domestic violence survivors. They gave me a new identity, a new city, a new life. Rita Toney was born in a federal witness protection adjacent program that the government won't acknowledge exists. Why work as a nanny? I asked quietly. Because your background check was so thorough it was perfect, Rita said with a bitter smile. You checked Rita Toney's credentials, her references, her credit score. But Rita Toney only existed for 8 months before you hired her. You never questioned why someone with her qualifications would work for your salary, because you assumed I was just grateful. You never wondered why I had no family photos, no social media, no past beyond 2 years ago. The words hit like individual punches. She was right. I'd been so confident in my vetting process that I'd never asked the human questions, the ones that don't have checkbox answers. The Rebirth Network started as my lifeline, Rita continued. But then I met Marcus, former Special Forces operator who lost his daughter to domestic violence, and Deputy Chin over there, whose sister barely survived an abusive marriage. We realized we could do more than just hide. We could help others disappear, rebuild, and fight back. Deputy Chin spoke for the first time. The network operates in a legal gray area. We use private funds, mostly donations from survivors who made it out, to buy supplies that help women escape. The high-end athletic gear serves multiple purposes. First, it's practical. Good running shoes can save a life when you need to move fast. Second, it's psychological. A woman wearing expensive athletic wear looks like she's going to the gym, not running for her life. And third, it's economic. We can resell some items to fund operations while keeping the critical supplies for those who need them. The Tuesday purchases, I said slowly, understanding dawning. You used my car because you never checked, Rita said bluntly. And because if anyone ever audited your household expenses, they'd see athletic gear and groceries, not suspicious cash withdrawals. You were my perfect cover. Stephen, precisely because you cared more about the numbers and the narrative behind them. Marcus entered the office, nodding at Deputy Chun. Victor's been processed. He'll be held without bail for violating parole and federal witness intimidation. Rita exhaled deeply, and I saw 3 years of tension leave her shoulders. So what happens now? I asked. Now! Rita stood up. Now I'm burned. Victor saw me, which means I need a new identity, a new city, a new life. Again. She looked at me directly. And now you need a new nanny, because Rita Tony is about to disappear. The grief that hit me was unexpected, not because I was losing an employee, but because I was losing someone my daughter loved. Someone who knew that Lily preferred strawberry jam over grape, who knew that Lily's favorite bedtime story was the one about the princess who saved herself. Lily, I whispered. How do I tell Lily? Rita's expression softened slightly. You tell her the truth in a way she can understand. You tell her that sometimes good people have to leave to stay safe. You tell her that loving someone means wanting good things for them, even when those good things take them away from you. Deputy Chin handed Rita a folder. Your new documentation. You'll be Michelle Parks, relocating to Seattle for a nonprofit job. The backstory is all in here. Rita took the folder without opening it. She'd done this before. I need to ask you something, I said suddenly. The warehouse, the network, what happens to it now? Marcus answered. It continues. We've got 12 other safe houses in this city alone. Rita was coordinator for this location, but the work is bigger than any one person. An idea formed, reckless and completely outside my comfort zone. What if I helped? Everyone stared at me. What if I donated? I continued, properly this time, not stolen from my household budget, but actual funding, anonymous, untraceable. I have more money than I'll ever use, and you have people who need. Why? Rita interrupted. Why would you do that? I thought about my answer carefully, because I knew this was the moment that would define whether I learned anything or whether I just remained the man in the glass house, counting his safety by zeros in a bank account. Because you taught me something tonight, I said finally, wealth isn't protection, it's responsibility. I've spent 3 years measuring risk and building walls, but you've been saving lives with shopping bags and running shoes. I want to be the kind of man my daughter thinks I am, not the kind of man I've actually been. 6 weeks later, I sat in my home office staring at a spreadsheet that would have horrified the old Stephen Johnson. It showed $250,000 in anonymous donations to organizations supporting domestic violence survivors, funding for 3 new Rebirth Network safe houses, and a scholarship program for children whose mothers had used the network services. The numbers were significant, but for the first time in my life, they felt inadequate to measure what really mattered. Lily had cried for 3 days when I told her Rita had to leave for a new job. I'd followed Rita's advice and told her an age-appropriate version of the truth. Sometimes good people have to move to stay safe, and loving them means being happy they're safe even if we miss them. On the 4th day, Lily had dried her tears and said something that broke and rebuilt my heart simultaneously. Daddy, if Rita had to run away to be safe, then I'm glad she had good running shoes. My 7-year-old daughter understood better than I had. I hired a new nanny, an older woman named Patricia, who came with 20 years of experience and a no-nonsense attitude that Lily initially resisted and eventually adored. But I did something different this time. I asked Patricia about her life, her family, her dreams. I learned that she'd raised 3 children alone after her husband died, that she loved mystery novels, that she donated to animal shelters every month. I treated her like a human being with a story, not just a service provider with a background check. Marcus called me on a Wednesday afternoon. "Got something you might want to see," he said simply. I drove to the Fifth Street warehouse. Still intimidating, still in the gray zone, but now a place I visited twice a month to deliver supplies personally. No more stolen credit card charges, just direct contributions and actual involvement. Inside, Marcus had set up a bulletin board covered with photographs and handwritten notes. They were thank you messages from survivors who'd used the network services. "This one came yesterday," Marcus said, pointing to a letter with careful handwriting. "Woman named Jennifer. Got out of Ohio with her 2 kids, using supplies Rita coordinated. She's now working as a teacher in Oregon. Says she runs 5 miles every morning in the shoes your household budget bought her. Says every step reminds her she's free." I read the letter 3 times, and each time I understood more clearly what Rita had been trying to teach me, that the weight of the bag she carried wasn't measured in dollars, but in lives. Deputy Chin appeared from the back office. "Johnson, got a situation you might be able to help with. Woman in Nebraska needs to disappear with 3 kids. She's got a go bag ready, but she needs transportation that won't trigger her husband's suspicions. You've got connections to corporate travel services, right?" The old Stephen would have calculated the legal liability, the potential exposure, the risk to his reputation. The new Stephen said, "I'll make some calls." That evening, I picked up Lily from school myself, something I started doing twice a week instead of always delegating to Patricia. As we walked to the car, Lily suddenly stopped and pointed at a woman in athletic wear jogging past us. "Daddy, do you think she's running for exercise or running to be free?" The question stunned me. "What makes you ask that?" "Rita taught me that you can't always tell why people are moving by how they look on the outside," Lily said seriously. She said some people run toward things and some people run away from things, and both kinds of running are brave. I knelt down to my daughter's level, really seeing her for the first time in a way that had nothing to do with protection or control. "You're right," I said. "And you know what else? Sometimes helping someone else run is the bravest thing of all." We walked to the car, and Lily chattered about her school day. I listened to every word, not just hearing but absorbing, because I'd learned that presence is more valuable than surveillance. That night, after Lily was asleep, I returned to my office and opened a document I'd been working on for weeks. It was a manual, not for my security business, but for the Rebirth Network. Corporate Donor Recruitment and Vetting Procedures was the title. I was using my expertise not to build walls, but to build networks. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Michelle Parks checking in. Settling into Seattle. Nonprofit work is fulfilling. Tell Lily that I think about her every Tuesday and that she should always remember to double knot her running shoes. I smiled and typed back. She remembers. We both do. Stay safe. And thank you for teaching us what safety really means. The response came 30 seconds later. Thank you for learning. I want to leave you with something that's become my guiding principle, because it's changed everything about how I see the world and my place in it. We spend so much energy building walls to keep danger out that we forget security isn't about separation. It's about connection. We mistake silence for peace and poverty for danger, when the truth is that the greatest threats often come from our own isolation, and the greatest strengths come from communities we're too afraid or too proud to join. True security isn't found behind a gated fence or in a bank account that counts safety by zeros. It's found in the strength of the community you help build when no one is watching. It's found in the running shoes you buy for someone you'll never meet, in the burner phone that helps someone call for help, in the Adidas bag that's common enough to be invisible but strong enough to carry survival. Don't judge a person's destination by the neighborhood they walk through. Judge them by the weight of the bags they carry for others. Rita Tony, Rebecca Morrison, whoever she is now in Seattle, taught me that wealth without purpose is just a different kind of poverty. She taught me that my daughter needed a father who understood that protection isn't the same as preparation, and that the most dangerous thing I could do was raise Lily to believe that money could shield her from everything hard and real and human. 6 months after that Tuesday night, I attended a fundraiser for domestic violence survivors, not as a donor seeking recognition, but as a volunteer serving food. A woman approached me, maybe mid-30s, with eyes that had seen trauma but held determination. "Are you Stephen Johnson?" she asked quietly. "Yes, I'm Jennifer, from Ohio. The teacher?" She smiled through forming tears. "I wrote you a letter through Marcus." "The runner," I said, remembering. 5 miles every morning. 6 now, she corrected. "My kids run with me sometimes. We're training for a 5K. She paused. "I just want to say thank you. You'll never know how many lives you've changed. But I did know, because every Tuesday when I made my round to deliver supplies, I saw them. Women learning the code so they could find remote work. Children doing homework in safe spaces. Elderly volunteers like Marcus who turned their pain into purpose. I used to measure my life in risk assessments. Now I measure in running shoes delivered, burner phones activated, and lives given a second chance to run toward freedom instead of away from fear. That's the lesson I'm teaching Lily now. Not that the world is safe, but that we have the responsibility to make it safer for others. Not that money equals security, but that purpose equals peace. Every Tuesday, Lily and I pack supplies together for Network. She's 7 years old, and she already understands something that took me 38 years to learn. The heaviest bags to carry are the ones filled with other people's hope, and they're also the most important ones to never put down. Rita was right. I was building my daughter a prison of gold. Now I'm teaching her to build bridges instead. And somewhere in Seattle, I hope Rita, Michelle, whoever she is now, knows that the seeds she planted in a glass mansion overlooking a perfect lawn have grown roots in the very streets I used to fear. Because that's what true educators do. They don't just teach lessons. They teach people to see the world differently, one Adidas bag at a time. So here's the real question. Did you subscribe yet? Thousands of people will listen to this story and won't subscribe. Please don't be that person. Kindly support what I do here by subscribing. And then drop in the comment section if you like part 2 of Stephen, Rita, and Lily's story. What challenges will they face as the network expands? How will Victor's allies retaliate from prison? Will Rita ever return to see Lily again? Let me know if you want to hear more.